Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down this three-game NBA playoff slate for Friday night. Going to be talking through my favorite early little core plays, as well as doing a game-by-game breakdown, just talking through kind of minute expectations, who we should look to, who we shouldn't look to, all that good stuff. So make sure to hit that like button. Let's try to get to 30 likes on this video. That'd be huge. Do really appreciate all the support. So if you can hit that like button, that'd be big. Hit that subscribe button, and let's get into this video. Before we get into the video, just want to do a quick recap of my lineup. And if you want just a more in-depth breakdown of the slates with updated core plays, I will have that on my Patreon. I'll have a video out kind of in the afternoon, just with the updated news, my updated thoughts of how to attack the slate, who I'm looking to, all that good stuff. You can find that on my Patreon link down below, as well as I do put up some extra PrizePick plays on that. But as we can see here, excuse me, with my lineup, went to Spencer Dinwiddie. I just ended up liking the condensed rotation over there. Wasn't going to spend up there at point guard, but I ended up landing on him. He got 37, which is fine. You know, he actually had a decent game, even though they lost. Melton ended up working out. He was only 4%. Royce O'Neal was god awful once again. His past two games, what? 2 of 11, 2 of 7, 30 plus minutes in both. He's just been horrendous. He literally lost in the game yesterday with a few late turnovers. Wiggins, Sabonis, Steph, Powell, and DiVincenzo. So I talked about how I really, really liked the, stacking that Golden State and Sacramento game. And as you can see, I got what, 5 pieces from that game or 4 pieces from that game, and got Powell once we got that news that there was no Kawhi. Um, it was going to be a huge night for me. I was in 20th place all the way up until the last 6 minutes of the Warriors and Kings game, and there's I think 1 minute left in that Suns game, and I was in 20th place, and I was like I have a legit shot of taking down the tournament just because I had Wiggins, I had Sabonis, I had Steph, I had DiVincenzo, I had 4 guys and Powell. So I was like, I'm in 20th place. I kept moving up. I was like, this is great. And what do you know? I mean, you can see right there, $0. I fell out of cash in the last quarter of that Suns game because the Golden State game blew out. Wiggins did nothing in the fourth quarter. I don't think he scored a single fantasy point, and I'm not even lying about that. Sabonis, he lost a good amount of run there. He only played 35, so he lost 5 to 6 minutes there in that game. So that was super frustrating. Obviously, Steph was great, but he played 37 minutes. Could have been nice to see a few more from him. DiVincenzo, he was fantastic. Only played 2 of 7, shot 2 of 8. And it was one of the things. Powell and Russ were so chalky, and Devin Booker, that it ended up knocking me out of the cash line. I missed it by I think it was like 5 points I missed cash by just because of that game there. So it's just super frustrating stuff. I thought I was gonna have it close to a real shot of a takedown, and that last quarter of the last game just absolutely killed me, and the blowout killed me. So it was just frustrating stuff there. It's just like thought it was gonna be a takedown night, and it ended up me missing cash by 5 just because of that last game. It's just like no Kawhi, no Paul George. They have Russ and Norman Powell. That's all they have, and they're gonna keep it close with the Suns. It's gonna be like a 130 to 125 game. Everyone's gonna go off. It's like, come on. But yeah, getting into this three-game slate for tonight, starting off with Boston and Atlanta. Obviously, the huge risk here is the blowout risk, as we saw from both games so far. Blowout. So right there, obviously 13-point blowouts. Next game, 13-point blowout. So it's been blowouts both times. But it's one of those things where Tatum, as you can see, he's played 40 minutes both games, even in blowouts. He's still playing a bit. So it's like I think a lot of these Boston guys are just way too cheap. Tatum at 9.9, he looks fantastic. Brown's price tag has come down. Was great the first game, was not the best in that second game, just because everyone else kind of stepped up. So I do really like Brown there as kind of like a contrarian play in the 8K range. I think the whole Boston team, as I mentioned, looks fantastic. Just at the price tags, this matchup, it's a great matchup. It's hard to get away from at least one or two Boston guys on the slates just because of the matchup and the price tag. So they both look great. I think I prefer Brown slightly to Tatum. Derek White, once again, he was the worst play in NBA DFS this season last slate. I will say it again. You can ask any of the top DFS pros. They all agree he was egregious ownership and he was a horrendous play coming in at 80+% owned in that last slate. Of course, he rewards everyone with 11 of 16, 45 fantasy points. But what? Jokic, 13% last slate? He only went for 50 fantasy points. It's so annoying that he was bad. But yeah, once again, Comes at a solid price tag. I mean, it's a great matchup, but if he's going to be like extremely high owned again, I'm going to fade. It's not a good play because you can get to a Marcus Smart who literally has the same upside, maybe slightly less of a ceiling just because he's not as good of a shooter, but like he can get the peripheral stats, which Derek White sometimes doesn't do. So I like Smart, even though his minutes aren't the best. He does lose some minutes in a blowout, 32 past 2 games, but he looks really good. Um, Al Horford looks really, really solid in the mid range. Kind of a limited ceiling recently, but we know his upside for like a double double if he's hitting his threes. Brogdon, I went to him last game. He was extremely low owned. He only played 28 minutes, but he absolutely smashed for almost a 40 bomb. So once again, I'd rather get to him than Derek White if there's going to be a huge ownership discrepancy. But once again, I think everyone looks fantastic. And then I do like Robert Williams as like a cheaper, low owned pivot play. The minutes aren't great, only 23 in that last game, 22 the game before, but we know he's huge upside. Hasn't flashed it recently, but I know one of those games is coming where he goes for like 14, like 16 points, 14 rebounds, and like 4 or 5 blocks. Like he has that upside. He has the upside to go for 45 plus just because of that, in a short amount of time. So I know one of those games is coming. I think it might come tonight. So I do like him a good amount, and that's really it for the Boston side. Moving on to the Atlanta side here. For the Atlanta side, they all come in at super, super cheap price tags. As you can see, 8-4 for Trey Young is the highest on this team. But it's one of those things they're just losing a ton of minutes. They're probably losing 5 minutes each just because of the blowouts at the end of the game. So it's like I like, as much as it sucks to say, I like these Hawks guys a good amount just because they're super cheap, and it's just like for some reason if they do keep the game close, you can expect huge minutes for the Boston guys. You can expect huge minutes for this Hawks guys, and they're just coming in at way too cheap price tag. So I have a good amount of interest in Trey Young, Dejounte Murray. It kind of seems like one or the other usually has a good game. So far through the first 2 games, it's been Dejounte, and his minutes have been up. Trey Young's minutes have been down. He has not been doing well. So I don't mind taking that shot on Trey Young, seeing if he has a bounce back game here in the third game. Clint Capella, he had like his first 50-50 split with Okongwu. Usually Capella plays high to close to 30 minutes, and then Okongwu is kind of floating around 20 to 22. Last game they split it evenly, so I think it's a fine play there. It's just the minutes don't look great on him right now. Bogdan's a great spark off the bench. 28 minutes the first game, 33 in the second game. So I think we expect high 20s from him. We know he's solid upside if he's hitting the shots. He can do a little bit of playmaking, so he looks good. Hunter had a massive game there for me last game. Very low ownership. I'm assuming people will chase, but it's one of those things like he can go for 30 plus. I wouldn't expect 12 rebounds, but he can go for 30 plus, fantasy points just by hitting his threes, getting a couple steals, a couple rebounds, assists. So he looks solid. Collins comes in at a very cheap price tag. He has been god awful, but he's playing, 30 minutes. He's shooting the ball. So it's like he does have upside. Okongu's there. He played 24 minutes. We know he's decently productive. So he looks like a decent value at that price tag. And then Bay, I don't think there's a need to get to Bay. He's kind of fallen out of the rotation a bit. So yeah, I don't think there's a need to get to him. Moving on to this Cleveland game. For Cleveland, it's a pretty easy breakdown. I mean, they're playing their 4 main starters massive amounts of minutes. So it's like Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen, you can expect 40 minutes pretty much from every single one of them if the game stays close. So yeah, I have a good amount of interest in all four. I think I'd prefer Garland to Mitchell, but we know the offense for the Cleveland Cavaliers obviously goes through these two guards. So last game I went to Garland, he had a great game. Mitchell had a solid game. He didn't score the ball. He didn't even like shoot too much. I think they kind of got the ball in his hands. He's more of a playmaker and still went for 46 and a half. So they both look great. Still slightly prefer Garland just because of the cheaper price tag. I'm assuming he'll be more popular just because of that. But yeah, I think they both look great. Really like Mobley here at 7,100. 39 minutes. I don't think he scored until like the last 4 minutes of the second quarter. And so he really turned it on that second half. But yeah, I think once again, he looks super solid. 40 minutes from all four of these starters. They all look a little bit too cheap here. And then Karis LeVert will kind of be that fifth man. They did start him in the second half there. He played 40 minutes. He was super productive. I talked about how I really liked him last slate. So I'm assuming he'll be more popular this slate. At that price tag, I think he's a fine play there. We know he can get extended. He can get that spot start there in the second half if Okoro's doing bad. Okoro only played 3 minutes. So I think you can definitely land on him as like a super risky dart throw, but I don't think there's a need. Teddy Osman's kind of like the sixth man. He is, playing solid minutes, 19 and then 23. So I think you can land on him as a dart throw if he does play. And then they did go to Danny Green a little bit over Okoro in that last game. So it's like, sure, you can take an absolute dart throw on him, but I don't trust it. Like, really only have interest in these, like the first six guys, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Allen, LeVert, and Osman. Right now I'm going to throw Mobley in as an early core play. And then from this first game here, I think I'm going to throw in Robert Williams, and we're going to go to Jalen Brown. And then moving on to the Knicks side here, we have Randall coming in at a super cheap price tag. Obviously, this game is super slow paced. Great defense from Cleveland. So, these Cleveland, or excuse me, these Knicks guys have really struggled. Randall 42 and then 34, 7 and 20, 8 to 20. So he's not shooting the ball well, but I expect to bounce back here soon enough. I mean, we know the upside with Randall, so I like him there, 8,200. Brunson has kind of been the main guy, the big dog there for the Knicks the past two games. So I do like him a good amount. He's playing solid minutes. Obviously, he's losing out on minutes because of the blowouts in the end of the game. But I do like him a good amount. Both those two look great. In terms of the rest of this team, I think they're fine plays. Like they're nice, like contrarian pivot plays off of other guys in the mid range across the board. Like Barrett, we know he has upside. It's just he has not been playing well, so it's hard to trust him. It's hard to feel safe on him. But it's like one of those things. Like we know he has upside, so he could definitely get you there. But it's really hard to trust that. We know Josh Hart has upside, but it's hard to trust him. He's just not a highly productive guy. He's not going to shoot the ball a ton. Mitchell Robinson has just been so up and down recently. I mean, he has an upside, as you can see, for 51 in a short amount of minutes, but once again, he's going against a tough matchup, so he's hard to trust. Quickly, it's come down to 4,900. Minutes have not been great. The past two games, 24 and 23. He can get super hot from the floor in a short amount of time, but if he's going to see low 20s, it's hard to get to him. Same thing with Grimes, kind of with Brunson and Randall there. Grimes is just going to be more of a guy who plays kind of mid 20s, doesn't do much. So no interest in him. And then Hartenstein, I think it would probably be my favorite play besides Randall or Brunson on this team. Playing mid 20s minutes, he's decently productive. He's kind of like a Okongwu play, and he's slightly cheaper than Okongwu. So I think he's a solid play there, and that's about it. So yeah, not a ton to like there on the Knicks side, besides kind of those three guys I mentioned. And then moving on to Denver here. For Denver, Jokic, as I talked about. How'd the Faders know? As DK says, how'd the Faders know? He played 37 minutes, almost had a triple double, but he only went for 50. But Derek White, 80% owned, 80 plus percent owned, goes for 46 career shooting day, 11 of 16 career shooting percentage, and he goes for 46. So it's like, we can't have that. Like, about one of those things, great matchup. I think one of these games, Jokic is going to go for like an 80 bomb, if not more. So I like him once again a good amount. Jamal Murray, I talked about how I really liked him. Pivoted off him at the last second to get to Jokic, and he went for 56, 40 bomb there, 40 real life bomb. So both of them once again look fantastic. MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and Bruce Brown are all fine like mid range plays. It's one of those things like, yeah, you can land on them. Sure, they can have some upside. It's hard to really trust it because you're really throwing like a dart at the wall in terms of like trying to guess when their good game is. But I think they're all fine mid range plays. KCP played huge minutes, more of a 3 and D guy, so it's hard to trust him even at a cheap price tag in that amount of minutes. And then Jeff Green will play a decent amount, but he's not really productive. So don't love that, cheap paying down for him just because he's just not really productive at all. So that does it for Denver. It's really just the main two guys are the clear cut best plays. And then these mid range guys are just kind of finding contrarian plays across the mid range board. Moving on to Minnesota here. Anthony Edwards, Carl Towns, once again, both look fantastic. I think I prefer getting to Towns now. I kind of like Anthony Edwards last game, pivoted off him to get to Chris Middleton, and obviously that game blew out. Anthony Edwards actually, this game stayed close. He did fantastic. But I think they both look fantastic. Slightly prefer Towns. I just like buying low and guys who are doing bad, nice bounce back spots. As you can see, Towns, 30 minutes, 34, 5 of 15, 3 of 12. He is just not playing well at all. Foul trouble in that last game as well. So I like him in a bounce back spot here against Denver. Not the best matchup for him, but I still is Towns. We know he is solid upside. So I do like him. Gobert played huge minutes just because of that foul trouble to Towns. So I guess he's a fine mid-range play, but I still don't like getting to him. Anderson, Conley, both fine plays. Anderson's minutes aren't the best recently. Conley, his minutes are going up once again, so you do like that. I think he comes in at a very solid price tag. And then for the value, Torian Prince did start. He got in some foul trouble there, as you can see, 5 fouls. So he probably would have played mid-20s minutes. I guess he's a fine value play if he starts once again. Or if they go to NAW who starts, I think he's a decent value play as well. And then for an absolute dart throw, you can get to Noel, but his minutes aren't a guarantee. So that's doing it for the kind of the early look core play video and game by game breakdown. I'll have an updated one on my Patreon link down below, as well as a PrizePicks video coming out after this. I guess for a fourth core play here, we got Brown, Robert Williams, Mobley. Obviously, don't put them in the exact same spots. I'm just clicking on them, so they're kind of just going wherever. You want to kind of build out your lineup a different route, but I think I think right now, Towns is going to be that other play. So that's kind of the four core plays as right now, kind of more of a mid range balanced build. And yeah, I'll kind of update you guys throughout the day on my Twitter and go from there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.